And our thoughts are with those who've given their lives in the service of their country to protect our nation. The beginning of November is a part of the year known as Remembrance, when our thoughts are with those who've given their lives in the service of their country to protect our nation and its values. In this programme, we'll be hearing from some of those in Faversham who support veterans, collecting for the Poppy Appeal. We'll meet a man who used tank collection to raise money for our armed forces. We talk about the RAF Cadets, and Faversham Town Council tells us about their signing of the Armed Forces Covenant. But first, Faversham's Mayor, Councillor Trevor Martin, tells us what Remembrance means to him.
Remembrance means a lot in many ways. I'm of that generation whose parents went through World War II, even though they were at school. And my grandparents had been through World War I in a similar stage, so they weren't necessarily military. But also, my father served and did his national service, and a lot of people did. So I was brought up with that respect for the military, shall we say. And I'll be honest, I nearly ended up in the military myself. Well, I did look at it when I was leaving school. And I think it's something that we have become as a nation much more aware of, because those that served in the major conflicts, I know we've still got people who served in the Falklands and even Korea and Burma and what have you, but even I'm talking the World Wars, we've lost most of the people that served. And I think it's even more important to realise that we can only do what we do today because of what they did. And that's why Remembrance, I think, means a lot to all of us. And it's that time of year when the nation has time to reflect. And with the way people now can access former records and what have you, researching their families, I think it's actually become more poignant, not less, which is surprising in some ways, but it's true. I think that Faversham's been associated with the military for centuries, and that's something that sort of grows into you, I think, when you grow up here.
So how's the Town Council and how are you as the Mayor involved in Remembrance?
Well, I mean, the Town Council have taken over, because of insurance reasons, the Remembrance Day Parade, the Remembrance Sunday road closures and all that side of it. We work with those that have been involved in the military through the Royal British Legion and the Poppy Appeal. We use our expertise and the things that we've got to try and help out. And obviously the Mayor has always been, as the Mayor and the Town Council, have always been a focus of Remembrance Sunday, turning up into the church in robes and at the War Memorial for the various services. And I think as a Town Council we're very much aware that that's something that everyone, no matter what views they hold, respect. And I think that's where the Town Council, as a moral leader, needs to be.
And what about during the Act of Remembrance at the War Memorial here in Faversham? Because you're part of that as well, aren't you?
Yes, I mean the Town Council lays a wreath. The Mayor does that on behalf of the Town Council, along with lots of organisations, whether it be the ex-servicemen's associations, the Royal British Legion and the SAFA and the like, whether it be political parties or other councils even. Swale and Kent and the MP will all lay a wreath or ask someone to lay a wreath on their behalf here. Faversham had, up until the 1920s, very large explosives manufacturing industry, and we supplied the munitions for a lot of munitions for the First World War, but also for things like Trafalgar and Waterloo and what have you. So I think it's very important that we as a town recognise that as well, and that's why we're involved in that. And also we will march with the cadets and the military contingents and the ex-servicemen to St Mary's Church, and we will attend the Remembrance Day service there as the town council. It's very important to us, I think is the way I'd put it.
And you mentioned it earlier, but the significance of those events around Remembrance Sunday, they haven't decreased, have they? People are still very keen to mark that event in November, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I think we as a nation, small nation in many ways, have a huge military tradition. Whatever you think of our predecessors, the armed forces of the United Kingdom have served all over the world, whether as in the colonial times in the empire, or whether it's just helping with NATO in Bosnia, for example. And I think everyone's much more conscious of that. And as the armed forces get smaller, I think those of us that have not served need to show that, use that time to show that respect for them that do.
So you're present at the service at the memorial here in Faversham, and obviously for the 2-minute silence. What goes through your mind for you personally during that silence when you're thinking about the people who we're remembering?
For me, I remember a lot of the things that I was told about when I was a child. I think, quite honestly, of my great-grandfather, who was a fireman at one of the explosives factories in 1916, and I only found out in 2016 exactly why he got his medal. Never forget the memorial service for the great explosion, because my mother turned to me when they said the guys that got the medal were standing on another hut with another 150 tonnes of TNT putting fires out on the roof. It's those sort of things, the fact that it affects every family, and particularly the families of those people who served in the First and Second World Wars, in whatever capacity. I mean, they were really the first time when we saw total war. And the other thing I do tend to think about is those that are involved in conflicts now. That 2-minute silence really does bring it home to you, I think.
Now, the Town Council's recently signed the Armed Forces Covenant, and we'll be chatting about that a little bit later on. But you must be quite proud that the town's now signed up to that.
Very proud the town signed up to that. I think one of the things that those of us that haven't served or don't know anyone who has recently don't often realise that it's not just the person serving in the armed forces. Their family are moved often every 2-3 years, and we all know, getting a doctor's appointment, getting on a doctor's list or a dentist list or school places sometimes can be quite difficult, and anything that can be done to help those families while they're in the area get the services that they need. I know the town council doesn't run those services, but even if they want an allotment, for example, by signing up to something like that, we're saying we recognise that this can be a problem for you and we'll try and help. And also the town council employs people. If people who have families in the military, we will hopefully be able to accommodate that as well. And that's something that, whilst it's not necessarily true all the time, but it's one of those things we recognise that those people deserve to have the opportunities that others do, but sometimes you might need to speed it up to make it work for them.
The Poppy Appeal in Faversham is coordinated by the Royal British Legion, and as we lead up to the 11th of November, you'll find volunteers collecting throughout the town. One Saturday, I went to Market Square to meet some of them. We're in Faversham Marketplace. It's a couple of weeks before Remembrance Sunday, and I'm with Christopher Hopkins, who's the Poppy Appeal organiser for Faversham and the surrounding area. Christopher, how's it gone so far today?
Well, it started off very bad because of the weather, but as the day's gone on, it's got better and better, and people are coming out and they are starting to go into our tombola and also buying the poppies, which is all what we're asking for, really. So, yeah, very good.
And every year it's such an important part of the calendar for people, isn't it?
Yes, it gives them an emphasis on to remember people and start looking in at their ancestors. Say, like us, we only found out that Joy, the other Poppy Appeal organiser, her uncle died in the First World War in the Somme, but we didn't. Nobody talked about Harold. So it's time for people to start doing that. And on this year, we've got the poppies up on the lampposts, and I'm asking people if they want to sponsor a poppy and put someone's name on it, so that other people can see who they're remembering through the Poppy Appeal.
And I imagine, there's very few people left from the Second World War generation, but there have been lots of conflicts since then when people have died who we should still be remembering.
We should remember every serviceman, right up to today. Though there are not much going on for them, there's still places they are at and building up for other things, what might come up and happen. So we remember them all. Yeah, they've stood on that line to serve the country.
And what are the services that the RBL provides for service personnel and their families? How do you look after them?
If a serviceman or his family get in difficulties in all sorts of ways, from the PTSDs and the stress and injuries to some of them helping them with their debt if they're getting in problems that way. They house some of them. There's so many different ways that it's like the normal welfare, but for the servicemen. So it's a big thing, and it costs a lot.
Because the service life is very unique, isn't it? And when people come out of service life and they're suddenly confronted with the reality of normal life, that can be not quite a shock, but it can be quite challenging to deal with, can't it?
It's a shock, yeah. All service life, you've got a huge, great family around you, and the bloke behind you, the bloke beside you, and the bloke in front of you, or the lady, whoever it is, has got your back. So if you get in a problem, they'll come and help you. But I'm afraid in civilian life after that, you've got to find them first. They're not there with you from the beginning. So it's a big culture shock for all servicemen. They take it and treat it in their own way. And some survive a lot better, but sadly, there's a lot on the streets sleeping rough because they can't cope with civilian life. And that's sad.
And I see you've got your CAT badge and your medals. What was your service?
I served with the Royal Engineers. I joined in 1970 as one of the junior soldiers, Real North Wales. I served with the Royal Engineers. Most of my time I spent training junior soldiers again as a military and a civilian PT instructor. I served in Dover, Chepstow. I went to 3 RSME in Aldershot, and then I ended up at Arborfield as a civilian instructor there. So I've done 34 years. So, and most of that time as a PTI. But Joy and I, we both went and joined 4626 Medical Evacuation Squadron. We thought it was just something different. I do like first aid and that sort of thing, but we ended up and got called up for the first Gulf War. So we did probably about 3 months in Riyadh, sorting out loading the aircrafts and moving patients by air. So a bit different, and we didn't expect that to happen.
And now you volunteer for the Poppy Appeal. It must have some of that camaraderie and be nice to be around other ex-service personnel.
It does. I had a chap today who came in and said, Sapper. I shook hands with him and I said to him, so when did you serve then? He said, well, I got called up in 1955. So I happily turned around and says, oh, that's good. I was 1 then. And I got the shut up. So the old camaraderie, we can get it from all of us. So yeah, and but my main reason that I do this is I spent all that time as a PTI in the training teams, training young 16, 17, 18-year-olds to join the sappers. and now I'm being able to give them support afterwards. If they've got problems, they need it. I'm helping them again.
And how will you personally be marking Remembrance this year? What will you be doing?
Two things. Because we're here on the 11th, I'm going. The cadets are going to. The Air Cadets are going to bring their band in, and we're going to do a little parade in the middle here of the market at 11 o'clock. And if we can get someone to do the last post for us, it would be really nice. And on the Sunday, on Remembrance Sunday, I actually carry the standard for the Royal Engineer Association in Maidstone. So I'll be parading there on that day. So that's my weekend taken up.
And a very worthwhile cause, well. Chris Hopkins, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, and I thank anybody and everybody who's put their hand in their pocket and made a donation. I'm thankful. Thank you.
My name is Flight Sergeant Eleanor Kane. I'm a volunteer here with the Air Cadets.
So, Flight Sergeant Eleanor, we're here raising money for the Royal British Legion for the Poppy Appeal as part of Remembrance. Why is Remembrance important for the cadets?
Well, as our parent service is the RAF, it is incredibly important for us as volunteers and for the cadets to sort of understand and really become a part of the giving back to those veterans there. So it's so important for us, and really for the cadets to learn a lot about the history of it as well. Being here and volunteering with members of the Royal British Legion gives us a really nice insight and makes the cadets able to speak to people who have been in these situations before and really understand more about it. As much as we as volunteers like to be able to educate them, it's great to have it firsthand as well.
I have to say that very smart here as well, so that they must enjoy the experience of being able to almost show off about the fact they're cadets and be seen publicly in their uniforms.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, our cadets they're very proud to be wearing their uniforms a lot of the time, which they take great pride in prepping them as much as they can.
So what do the young people get out of being RAF Air Cadets?
Well, there's such a wide variety of activities that we take part in. Things like this are lovely for us to give back to the community, but they do get a lot out of it personally as well. So they do, on the squadron, on our parade nights, we give them an education in aviation-based subjects, including STEM, cyber, and we just introduced a space syllabus as well. But then away from the squadron, they can go on camps, off onto RAF bases, so they get a little bit of an insight into what the RAF is like on a day-to-day basis as well. They get to go flying, and gliding, and there's an awful lot of really amazing opportunities. One of our cadets actually has applied to go on a camp to Florida next year, so yes, that should hopefully be fantastic. Something that I did as a cadet as well, which was an incredible experience.
Do many of the cadets go on to join the RAF?
So it's a bit mixed throughout the whole corps. For us in Faversham, we've actually had some of our recent cadets have gone on to, we've got one in the RAF who comes back and does some talks. One of our young gentlemen actually joined the Fleet Air Arm as well, so the Naval Air Service. And we do have one in the Army, and obviously some of our older, more senior previous members of the Corps have gone on to do all sorts. So Robert McGowan, for example, was one who has gone off into the Marines and done very well for himself. He's very quite high up now. So it's such a wide variety, and it really sets them up for any of the services or for civilian life, and that's one of our key aims within the Air Cadets, is to provide experiences and training that would be appropriate either for the services or for civilian life.
It is a lot about those life skills, isn't it? About people developing, confidence really in who they are.
Most definitely, yeah. And we do try and make sure that we give our cadets a really rounded experience. They get a little bit of everything. They do a lot of aviation and blue subjects, but we also make sure they go out and do some greensy things. They do their shooting, they do their camouflage and concealment and things like that. So that we really try and make sure they get a really sort of wide variety rather than sticking to any one particular thing.
And it's fun, of course, as well.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
And what's membership like? Are you finding that you've got more people who want to join you, than you've got volunteers to take care of? How are the numbers looking?
So about a year ago, we were really struggling. We did have a real dip, just through natural causes, really. You know, people eventually it's time to move on, and people go and do different things in their lives. And we had a lot of older cadets who did go off into the services rather than staying on as volunteers, which is great for them. We are finding this year actually it's picking up slowly. We've done a lot of work on making sure that our volunteering team are growing, which is fantastic. We've got some new members, which is wonderful. And you know, our cadet team is growing as well. We've just done a recruitment of 6 cadets, but we're always looking for more. One thing that we're really sort of keen on at the moment is building up our civilian committee as well, who help us run the squadron, manage our finances and things like that. It's something that is such a wonderful experience to be able to see young people grow and thrive. I'd say particularly for adult volunteers, if anyone is looking or interested in doing something with their spare time, even if they want to do something as minimal as once a quarter and be part of the civilian committee, it would be something that, I mean, apart from the fact that we would really appreciate it, it can be so rewarding when you see that really quiet cadet that you've seen them join at 13 or 12 now as it's changed, and you know, you see them grow and develop, and you watch them do that thing that makes them really proud of themselves, and you suddenly see them come out of their shell, and it's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling as a volunteer to be able to foster that within them as well.
How are the cadets going to be involved in Remembrance itself across that weekend?
So we actually have, particularly with the Air Cadets, we've actually got a really big role this year in Faversham. So we will be taking part in the parade itself. We've also got speakers taking part in the Act of Remembrance at the memorial, which is fantastic. We have had a role in it before, but we've been asked for a few more extra people this year, which has been absolutely wonderful, and I know a lot of the cadets are really excited about it. We'll also have a band to head up the parade, which is very exciting. We've been learning some new music for that. We're just trying to help out as much as we can, really, to be able to give as much back as we can.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, and every success in all of the events you're taking part in over the next few weeks.
Thank you. It's lovely to speak to you.
We're still in the Market Square, and with me is Colin Parsons, who's brought along a couple of spectacular vehicles. Tell them what you brought here.
Cool, but the first vehicle we've always brought into is the Scimitar. They're reconnaissance vehicles, very fast, very agile, which the British Army are now taking out of service completely. The Spartan is being bought by Ukrainian because of the war, and we was lucky enough to buy one a few weeks ago.
Now, to the untrained eye, you might say they're tanks, but they're not. Is that right?
Yeah, they don't regard them as tanks, but you talk to anybody that drives a tank, it's got a turret, it's got armour, it's got tracks. So, yes, they're not regarded as an actual tank, but they are a tank. Because what are they? You know, it's a gun and turret, and that is an arguable thing that everyone argues about. But at the end of the day, the tracks, turret, gun, they're all very similar. They look like a tank.
So they're here to help support the Poppy Appeal, and the Royal British Legion raise money for Remembrance. So what interested you in buying 2 tanks? It's not a common thing to go and buy.
Well, I've always wanted the Scorpion, and then I thought, no, the Scimitar is better, which was the first one you saw over there. So I bought that one because it's very agile, it's nice to drive, but it's fun. For me, it's as a collector, it's more fun to go out and play with. I can go on the road because it's small enough, whereas then I got invited to support the Poppy Appeal, and I enjoy every moment of it, just seeing people's faces, not just the kids, the adults love them as well. But it's an expensive hobby, but it's enjoyable, and all the money we raise goes to good causes.
And you can take them on the road, can't you? They're road legal. You must get some interesting looks as you bowl down the road in one of these.
Oh, very much so. If you was in the Midlands, it wouldn't be so bad because you see a lot of these sort of vehicles in that area. Down here, no one really runs them on the road, A, because of the expense of running them, which they're not that expensive, but they're just good fun. But the people, I don't know why, they just can't get enough of them. But what you've got to remember, they're not just, I know they're military vehicles, but they were always a peacekeeping vehicle.
And what sort of reaction have you had from people here today? Because it does bring military life to life, doesn't it, having the vehicles?
Yes, they just thoroughly enjoy it because they're like that little arch over there from the main car park. They come through there, and all of a sudden they see two tanks. It's not the sort of things you see in a market town, but people just love them. They can't get enough of them. You know, the people, they like to get in them, look at them. We allow them to do that on certain places because we've got to watch their health and safety. But it just brings smiles to their faces. Funny enough, being a military vehicle.
Faversham Town Council recently signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, so I popped into the town hall to have a chat with Councillor Julian Saunders to discuss it. So, Julian, you've been involved in bringing the Armed Forces Covenant to Faversham Town Council. Tell me a little bit about what the Armed Forces Covenant is.
The Armed Forces Covenant is a national initiative, and in fact it's covered by national legislation now, which came in 2022. So really it's a pledge that all of us should acknowledge and understand that people who serve in the armed forces and their families, with local authorities like a county council, it places statutory responsibilities on them to treat ex-military personnel fairly. But there's also an expectation that other councils and indeed voluntary groups and other organisations will adopt the military covenant, and that's the reason it came to Faversham Town Council. It's a relatively new initiative, and the Town Council wanted to be part of it.
What does the Armed Forces Covenant mean for ex-service personnel and even service personnel here in Faversham?
Okay, well, the Covenant is about making sure that people who come out of the Army, the Navy, the other services are treated fairly, and they're treated with respect, and that there's not prejudice against them. So it's very much about making sure that they get a fair chance in life. So that's at the basis of it. Now that, when you're looking at the county council providing social services, or you're looking at the borough council providing housing, that places a particular obligation on them. In the context of the town council, it's more that we support organisations in the town that are involved in military activities. It's more that we raise the profile of the issues around people who've come out of the forces resettling into civilian life. When you look at the Covenant, one thing that's part of it is supporting and encouraging cadet forces. So they're often obviously a channel for young people who want to go into the forces, and the town council has had a relationship with those organisations over a number of years, and one of the things we do is to give people who are involved in young people who are involved in the cadet forces some opportunities to do some broader things. So volunteers from the cadet forces, for example, help at the transport weekend. They're involved in the stewarding and some of the activities that go on. So that's something that we do at the moment, and I think that we'd like to expand. And then now that we're part of the Covenant, there's the opportunity for us to look at some of the rehabilitation activities that go on, and some of the organisations that are involved in rehabilitation. And I was chatting to the town clerk. She was telling me that there's an organisation out towards Newnham, the Queen's Royal Regiment Rehabilitation Centre, that are building a new centre there, and that could be an opportunity for us as a town council to encourage volunteers to get actively involved with them and play a more active role in helping people who are coming out of the forces. So there's lots we could do, but we, as a town council, we need to be clear that there is a limit to what we can do, because we don't have statutory responsibilities at all. So I think it's important that the town council, which is the almost like the bottom tier, but a key tier of local democracy is involved in the Covenant, because people who've been in the military have protected our democracy and protected our rights and freedoms over many centuries, in fact.
Faversham's Remembrance Day Parade and Service takes place on Sunday the 12th of November at the War Memorial in Stone Street, beginning at 10:45, and that's followed by a full service of remembrance that takes place at the St Mary of Charity Church. For Radio Faversham, this has been Mike Adams.